Waiters and waitresses of Reddit, what is the most awkward couple date you have ever witnessed at work?
Okay.
I work at a dinner theater, and usually people do proposals where we set up a random draw where the winner comes up on stage to win their prize, and are surprised by a partner who proposes. It's usually sweet and makes everybody in the room all fuzzy and warm. Aww. This one guy wanted to take it further and requested to perform a song. He brought his own music and everything. We're pretty easygoing at this job, so we agree to let him do it.
Oh.
We do the fake draw. The woman comes up on stage in front of a room of 400 people, and the music starts to play. Apparently this guy is a little nervous, and he compensated by having a few drinks. So what follows is a slurred performance of a song written by this guy that seemed to focus on how he was sorry for cheating on this woman with her sister, and in the end of it, he gets down on a knee and proposes. Usually this gets a round of applause, encouraging the person to say yes, but not after that train wreck of a performance. The poor woman was just holding her face the entire time and starts shaking her head as she says, "No, what's wrong with you?" She storms off and leaves him and our manager on the stage to a bunch of murmuring from the audience. The only thing our stage manager can think of to say in the mic is, "Well, that's it." The guy ended up staying for the rest of the show and had many more drinks. This was years ago, and it still remains one of the cringiest things I've ever seen. What the bleep do you even come up with the idea to propose like, "Hey, I cheated with your sister, but I love you. Do you want to marry me?"
Okay.
A couple came into the restaurant dressed very goth. I wasn't their server, but I was running the register just a few feet away. They proclaimed to everyone that they were energy vampires, but not to fear them because they won't hurt us. They said they didn't need our food for sustenance, but enjoyed the taste it.
Ooh.
After ordering the meal, they then politely asked the waitress if she would stick around for a second so they could feed off of her aura, so they could have enough energy for the night. The waitress said, "Okay," and gave me a side glance over her shoulder, and I knew that meant, I better get a good tip for this.
Okay.
The couple clasped each other's hands, closed their eyes, and made sucking sounds for a solid minute before leaning back in their seats as if they had had a turkey dinner. The waitress was indeed tipped well for her delicious energy.
Wow, that's amazing!
Had a couple come in one night and everything seemed to be going just fine. We had just hired a new server who was training, and I asked her if she had any questions. She was still a little nervous about greeting tables, so I told her she could shadow and watch what I do. We go over to this couple's table, and I hear from the new server, "You bleep and bleep!
Come on!
I knew you were cheating on me!"
I'm sorry.
Turns out the guy was her boyfriend on a date with this side chick and didn't know she just got a job there. Fortunately, the new server didn't get fired for what she said.
Dinner is served.
When I was bartending, this guy came into the bar on a weeknight. Average-looking guy, late 20s. He sat down and asked for a drink and told me he was nervous because it was his first date in 3 years and they'd met on Tinder. He arrived 20 minutes before her expected arrival to get rid of some of his nerves. 2 hours passed, and he waited for her with no text or call explaining she'd be late. This woman walks up to the guy, and I'm thinking, wow, she really came. She looks at him and says, "Are you Joe?" The guy replies and says yes and gets up to properly greet her, looking incredibly excited. She says, "No thanks," and just leaves. What a foul creature. Joe, not his real name, and I proceeded to get way too drunk for a Tuesday. Poor average Joe. If God didn't want us to get blitzed on a Tuesday, he wouldn't have given us tequila to wash down our tacos. I guess you could call this a couple date. I was working at a wine bar when a married couple sat down on a pretty slow night.
Ooh.
I went over the specials and they ordered. Once the appetizers came out, the man thought it would be a good idea to serve his wife divorce papers.
Damn it.
I did my best to avoid that side of the bar. I did bring out tissues for the wife who was breaking down. I ended up boxing up the dinner.
That's it?
The guy paid, but I do not envy that ride home.
You don't know how to have fun!
One of my first jobs in New York was managing a lounge, cocktail bar in a high-end hotel. At around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a guy that looked pretty cheesy, slick black hair, bad suit, etc., came up to me and demanded that he get that window table tonight for his date. He had a reservation at 8 p.m. I explained to him that I can't guarantee it, etc., etc. He slipped me $400 with the "how about now" look, in which I eventually caved and told him that I'd take care of it.
Go ahead.
He then pulled another stack of hundreds and started counting them in front of me while asking if I could go a little extra by coming over to the table when he was there with his date and pretend that he knew me from a movie. At this point, I've gone this far, why not? Sure enough, he rolled around later in the evening with a blonde bimbo, and after they'd had a few glasses of champagne, I approached the tables around them, checked on how they were doing before going over to him while the whole, "How are you this evening?" And before walking off, I did the Oscar-worthy double take. Are you by chance? You must be." At which point, he had this douchey smile lapping up the recognition he was getting from this young dude he'd just paid off. Most importantly for him, though, it worked. She was loving it.
Ooh.
And they left shortly after, and he slipped me another $600 on the way out.
That's it?